Hi Lindsay, it's Professor Sebastian. I'm just making this video here to give you some verbal feedback along with the written feedback on your first exam here in Precalculus. So I guess for the news that you're probably most interested in first, before I reviewed it, my math lab had scored your Precalculus exam 1 at 18.9 out of 30, which is 62.99%. And after my review and looking at all your work and finding partial credit for your work, you now have a score of 86.57%. That's a really good improvement. And so, again, showing your work and me seeing that you understand concepts is way more important than the correct answer. So just always remember that. This puts your current overall percentage grade, a snapshot here I just looked at. It's about 2 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, July 25th, at about 85.5, I think, 3%. Yeah, that's you right there. I didn't mean to show you that. I shouldn't be showing you everyone else's grades. Okay. And then, so let's go in and review your exam. All right, first question you got wrong was number 3, and you didn't have any work for number 3, so I do want to show you though. So this just asks, does this represent y as a function of x or not? Does this define y as a function of x? So if you can solve this for y, and it makes sense, then we do have y as a function of x. So solving for y, we just get y as the 9th root of 5 minus x, which is fine. So that is a function of x. So can't really increase that score. Okay, so number 5. Let's see, you didn't have any work for number 5, but I showed you some things. I still, sometimes when you don't give me work, I'm able to raise it because I can kind of see what's going on in your head here. The only thing you got wrong with number 5 is the function is increasing from -2 to 4. For some reason you stopped it at 2 and then restarted again at 2. Like I think your eyes saw that something's happening here. But if I was increasing before 2 and then increasing after 2, then it's okay to say it was increasing at 2. So really should just be -2 to 4. But, you know, you understood, I think, where the increasing part was for the most part. So I want your score from 0.67 to 0.95. All right, question 6. Again, you didn't have any work here, but I noticed that you basically just missed this part G, which was trying to say where is the function negative or 0. So you have the correct part here. Like if I look at your answer, you wrote -infinity and -4, which is the very first part of it. So from -infinity to -4, the function is certainly less than or equal to 0. But then also over here at x equals 2 at 0. So the way you add 1 point is to put it in set notation, with these brackets. So you missed that 1 point, that's all. So again, I increased your score from here from 0.75 to 0.95. All right, question 7. I'm trying to remember, was that already correct? Yeah, question 7 was all the way correct. By the way, if I put a check mark with MML above it, that means it was 100% correct on my math lab already, so I don't have to look at it that closely. So this was not question number 8. Question number 8, I didn't see work for. So, and it's really, not a lot of work to do, but you just read this and you see the slope is -3/5, the y-intercept is 2, and then when you went to graph it, you got the y-intercept correctly. But to see it, the slope correctly, you want to come down 3 here at -1, and then over 5. Boy, that looks correct. Oh no, that is the correct answer. That's why. So, but your answer is right here. Your answer is this. So when you got the y-intercept correctly, but if you come down 3 and over 5, it should go through the point -1, -5 right here, which is what the correct answer has, and you're off a little bit. But you did have the right, it was a negative slope, you just didn't put it in there correctly, you got the intercept correct, so I increased your score from 0.67 to 0.9. Okay, question 9, I think, was all correct. Yes, so question 9 back here. So this was question 9 that you labeled 8, and it is already correct. 10, you had a little bit wrong. Let's see. On 10, So you got the equation right for the point slope form, but then change it to the general form, something a little screwy happened here. So when you have that, so when you distribute the 5, 6 through, you got 5, 6x plus 26, or 10/3. And then you have to solve that for y, or not solve it for y because they want the general form. So you want to put it as ax plus by plus c equals 0. So this would have been fine. I noticed that you had 5, 6x minus y, and you could have that. You just have the plus 8's wrong. You could have put plus 22/3, and you would have been exactly right. Usually they don't like fractions in general form, so I just multiply everything by 6, and I get 5x minus 6y plus 44 equals 0, and that's how they get the answer in here. Okay, but I increased your score from 0.5 to 0.85 there, because you did know what to do. You just kind of, the algebra fell apart on you right about here. All right, let's see. 11 and 12 are correct. You didn't have work, but they were correct already. 13. So for 13, you basically want to find the domain. The only place that this is called a rational function, right? A polynomial divided by a polynomial. So the only place this could go bad is if the denominator goes to 0. So when you solve for the denominator equal to 0, you do see that it happens at minus 15 and minus 3. And you actually have the right answer here for the interval notation, then minus infinity to minus 15, and minus 15 to minus 3, and minus 3 to infinity. Just can't include minus 15 and minus 3. For some reason you put in something a little more screwy in here. You can see this is kind of messed up in here, so I'm not sure what happened. But you actually had the right answer here, so I just increased your score from 0 to 1. 14 already correct. 14, 15, 16 already correct. So 17, a little bit wrong. Let's see. 17. So we want to find the inverse function. So here's the problem with 17. You're doing everything fine. You're switching x and y. For some reason you got 5 there instead of a 10, but I think you're probably following an example. That's okay. That's 10 for this, and you did change everything to 10 when you put it in the answer. But when you take the square root of both sides, remember the square root of this should be plus or minus the square root. And the problem with that is that you need to force yourself to pick the negative square root. You can see it right here. So you need to know that what the function basically looks like. So it's the parabola x squared, but shifted 10 units to the right. And so it goes up pretty quick with the scale I have put here, because that means this would be 10 and it crosses up here at 25. But then what happens is, no, it crosses up here at 100, right? So when x is 0, y is 100. That's why it shoots up so quick. Now, that means that the inverse function I know is a reflection about the line y equals x. So the only way that will work is if we look at the negative square root. That's how I knew to choose a negative square root. So it's negative square root of x plus 10. And notice you put square root of x plus 10. Which off by a little bit, but it's, again, that's a big part of understanding this. And also the x has to be greater than or equal to 0. For some reason you put 10. All you got to do is look at the only thing that's wrong with this when you look at it is I can't put a negative number into the square root of x. So I just have to have x greater than or equal to 0. And then the domain and range switch. So the domain of the function is x has to be less than or equal to 10. So that means that the range of the inverse x has to be less than or equal to 10. In other words, y has to be less than or equal to 10, or the range is minus infinity to 10. The range of f inverse is 0 to, the range of f is 0 to infinity. So that means that the domain of f inverse is 0 to infinity. So, with all of that work here, I did increase your score from 0 to 0.25, but there were some kind of big concepts there I want to make sure you understand that you didn't quite get all. All right, 18's fine. 19, you had a little bit wrong here. Basically, when you added these values in completing the square, you forgot to add them to the right side of the equation. So the right side of the equation becomes 36. It doesn't stay at 19. Okay, that's one thing you have to remember. So when you add constants arbitrarily to the left side of the equation, you also have to add them to the right side. So we do need to add these constants to complete the square, but you got to remember to add them to the right side. So your radius is 6, not square root of 19. But for the most part then, so, oh, I didn't move to 19, sorry, move to 19 here. So you had this part of the circle correct, you did the completing the square right, but your r squared should have been 36 instead of 19. So you got the center right, and the radius would have been 6 instead of square root of 19. And your circle was drawn right with the square root of 19 radius instead of the square root of 6 radius. So bottom line is you pretty much knew what you were doing. You just forgot these two things here of adding these constants to the right. I increased your score from 0.25 to 0.8. All right, 20 already correct. 21. 21, what happened here? You actually had the right answer. This is the right answer, 8i minus 4 divided by 5. But they wanted you to write it in the form of a plus bi. So the real part would be the minus 4/5. And then plus b is 8/5 times I. So they wanted you to write it in this form, not how you wrote it this way. Even though that's exactly the same, they wanted you to put it in the form of a plus bi. So I increased your score from 0 to 0.95. 22 is fully correct. Next problem, a little bit wrong, is 23. So 23, we have that you have to complete the square on this, or you don't. You kind of look at the minus b over 2a here. Let's see, then you use the quadratic formula. But you got axis of symmetry right, you got the domain right. The range is actually including -6, right? Because you got the graph right too. So we include where it touches at -6. That's part of the y values it can be. So that's really the only thing you missed there. So I went from 0.75 to 0.95. Just didn't include the 6 there. Let's see, 24. So 24 is again similar. We want to think about completing the square here. So you're not completing a square. You're looking at the minus b over 2a. It's really the same issues. I like to complete the square to see what the vertex is. I know it's a minimum value because it's a positive x squared. Very good. You have the right. You got everything right though. So you got it right without completing the square, which is fine. But again, the range a little bit off. You want to include minus 33. That's it. That's the only thing you're doing wrong with this. So again, I increased that to 0.95. 25. 25. I made it fully correct. It wasn't graded fully correct, 0.8. But the reason is you put the zeros were 6, 6, and 0. Really, you don't put 6 as being a 0 twice. It just means it has multiplicity 2. So, and you answered all that right. You answered it has a multiplicity 2 and what that means about the graph, etc. So you just wrote the zeros wrong. It's really just 0 and 6, not 0, 6, and then 6 again. It's just one root of 6 with a multiplicity of 2. But I gave you the full credit. Okay, 26. Actually, I'm not going to quite have enough time to finish this. I'm going to make you a second video because I have to finish these videos in under 15 minutes in order to use the free version here of Screencast-O-Matic. So I will finish this and I'll come back and I'll start with number 26.